The Crypto Markets Update is brought to you by KuCoin, the best place to find the next crypto gem.
As I was saying before, choppy markets, and joining us now to discuss it is Greg Johnson. He's co-founder and CEO of investment advisor Rubicon Crypto. Welcome, Greg.
Thank you, Lawrence. Good to be back. Good morning, everybody.
Great to see you again. Of course, as I was saying, this has been quite a confusing time for the markets in general. And for crypto as well, it seems that it hasn't taken a massive hit. Like Bitcoin isn't necessarily trading in the 14,000s, but it hasn't rallied significantly either as a safe haven. So what's going on right now? It's definitely a risk on asset. But what are we learning about crypto in general as we go through these kind of hectic times?
I think we're learning a couple of things. The way that we view this current marketplace is we're in a purgatory that probably isn't going to go away for some time, Lawrence. I hear what you guys have been talking about in the last couple of weeks, and we're of the opinion that nothing meaningful is going to change in the crypto markets until we get the regulatory clarity, some of the headlines you guys led the show with today, sorted out. That is going to allow for the next wave of meaningful adoption. I think the next run only takes place when we get that clarity. And it is long overdue. You know, Christine, you joked a little bit about the SEC, putting a lawsuit for the CFTC for being a financial advisor. I mean, wouldn't that be something, and not too far removed from the crazy back and forth that we've had? We have to sort this out as an industry to allow for the broader adoption that's going to really get us out of this back and forth that you mentioned.
You know, the irony is that Bitcoin and crypto in general, the whole idea was that it was supposed to be outside of that whole regulatory world, that it was supposed to exist as a replacement for what the banking system and the financial institutions of the world have done to the general public, the devaluation of the currencies all over. And yet you're saying that once it gets regulated, or once we have more regulatory clarity and perhaps a significant amount more of regulation, that the value of Bitcoin will increase. But wouldn't it make it, in essence, an asset class very, very even more correlated with equities, with fixed income, et cetera, that it becomes a traditional asset class once that it gets regulated like that? And doesn't that sort of take away the potential hedging aspects of what crypto could be, or its role as a potential replacement for the banking system?
So much to unpack with that, Lawrence, and I agree with many of those assertions that you're making. Let me start with this. What I love about this industry more than anything else is the ironies that abound. You're absolutely right. Who would have thought that in 2009, when we have the white paper launch, that today one of the dominating topics in geopolitics is the proliferation of CBDCs? I mean, obviously not the same as cryptocurrency, but borrowing from the notions of blockchain technologies and the like. So I think that's a very interesting irony that we got. We think it's inevitable. The industry has benefited from traditional finance with the funding, all of the raises we were just talking about in the earlier segment as well. So the ironies are, in fact, everywhere. I still think there is room with regulation, appropriate regulation, regulation that is in part by the regulatory bodies. But there's really meaningful work, for example, with the global DCA group that is trying to advocate for self-regulation and taking it seriously. I think that is really what's necessary, ironically, for this market to snap out of it and move forward. You have been broadcasting headlines for months that in a normal world would have seen market performance, just go crazy in a good way. Just this morning, whether or not it was appropriate, and I agree with Emily and Christine, I've never heard a regulator say we might see a doubling, of Bitcoin or any type of commodity or equity like that before, and yet we've seen only tepid response to that statement. That's the kind of world that we're living in, and we believe it's that regulatory clarity and the adoption by TradFi, ironically, that matters most.
Let this be the not tepid response. Oh.
So the other big headline these days is the strong dollar and the sort of really strikingly strong dollar. What impact do you think this has on the crypto market, if any?
Well, I think it's impacting the markets like it's impacting everywhere else in TradFi also. I think it's getting people to hesitate from making big plays. Emily, what we're seeing with retail investors on the street right now is they're frozen. They're not pulling out, but they're not buying, as I think they may regret missing this opportunity to buy right now. But it's going to do right now is, I think, make things a little bit more stale, if you will. We're not going to see the kind of crisp investing that we were hoping to see. People are just taking that wait and see approach. Here I go again. Cash is king, I think, in the mindset for a lot of people, both at the high net worth and mass affluent level for our retail consumers, but also for some of the larger family offices that are important players in the ecosystem.
So, Greg, before we go, what do you see short term? What do you think is going to happen in the next, let's say, few weeks, 90 days? What do you think is going to happen in the markets here when it comes to crypto?
The same thing we've been seeing recently, Lawrence. We don't see any type of significant movement between Bitcoin and Ethereum. I think I go back to what we've talked about before. We look at April as being a relatively important time frame. We think that the Fed business will work itself out to a larger degree. And we are seeing this endless summer of crypto regulation bringing more people to the table. We're seeing strange bedfellows using this as a window of opportunity to examine how they participate. You'll know when we're ready to move, in my view, when we start to see traditional broker-dealers and traditional institutions not just say we have clarity, but start to hire, to start to include enterprise-wide training of digital assets. When we start to see the Series 24 exam include topics and questions on digital assets, that's when we will be ready to see the next big run. In the interim, I see the same thing we've been dealing with over the past month.